What if your mind wasn't thinking for you, but against you? What if 95% of your reality is being created by a version of you that hasn't evolved since ancient times? That's not just philosophy, it's neuroscience. In this video, you'll uncover the hidden staircase of consciousness most people never climb, and learn why even spiritual awakenings can become new prisons if you're not careful. The truth will change the way you see your emotions, your mind, your path, and your power. You'll finally understand how your subconscious patterns, reactive emotions, and even your thoughts are part of a precise design, meant to be transmuted. At the end of this video, you'll see where you are in your evolution, what's holding you back, and how to step into your next vibrational truth. Subscribe now, and begin your return to the source. Most people live inside a box they've never seen, a silent architecture made of beliefs, fears, and forgotten choices. It doesn't look like a prison, but that's what makes it so effective. The walls aren't physical. They're emotional, psychological, vibrational. This prison whispers, "You're in control," but you're not. Your habits are echoes, your choices, reactions. You think you're deciding, but the decision was made long ago, by your childhood, by your traumas, by the collective unconscious. And that's the trap. It all feels normal. The routine, the stress, the quiet craving for something more. It's the cage in disguise. The mind adapts to its boundaries so well that you stop looking for doors. You forget there's even a way out. Pause and feel this for a second. When was the last time you acted from presence instead of survival? When did you last make a choice that wasn't rooted in fear or memory? What if that moment has yet to happen? Here's where most people get it wrong. They confuse awareness with freedom. But awareness trapped in a loop is still a prisoner. 2. Break free. You must see the bars, the patterns, the beliefs that aren't yours but feel like home. You were taught to survive, not to awaken. You were trained to follow rules, chase goals, fit in. No one ever told you about the vibrational reality hiding beneath it all. The place where emotion is power and focus shapes the field. If the cage is invisible, the door is too. But it exists. In every breath you take with awareness, every time you choose stillness over reaction, every moment you remember that the observer creates reality, there is no savior coming. There's no final answer hidden in a book. You are both the prisoner and the key. And once you realize that, nothing can cage you again. Inner alchemical processes begin the moment you question the shape of your own mind. Guess what? Most people never do. They die never knowing they were free to begin with. But you're here. You're still reading. That means something inside you is waking up. Something ancient, something sacred. You are not your memories. You are not your fears. You are not your name, your story, or your pain. You are the space behind all of it. You are the one who sees. So now ask yourself, what if the first breath of freedom is simply noticing the cage? This is where it all begins. Before thought, before choice, before any awareness of self, there is survival. A raw operating system forged in ancient times, still running in the background of modern lives. It doesn't ask questions, it reacts. Fear is its compass. Hunger, pain, threat, these are the signals it obeys. You don't think, you flinch. You don't decide, you defend. Your brainstem and limbic system are still wired to see danger in every silence, every stare, every unknown. That's why someone cutting you off in traffic feels like war. Why losing status, control, or money feels like dying. The body can't tell the difference. Evolution made you fast, not wise, reactive, not aware. And it still runs the show. This is the first illusion, the belief that reacting is living. But reaction is a loop, a trap. You move through your day ruled by invisible alarms, always on edge, never truly present. The system that once kept you alive now keeps you small. You chase comfort, but it never satisfies. You avoid danger that doesn't exist. You think you're making progress, but fear is still the one behind the wheel. The loop spins endlessly. Trigger, fear, reaction. relief, repeat. Even worse, society rewards this state. Hustle, compete, consume. These are survival commands wrapped in modern language. We call it ambition. But it's just fear wearing a suit. The fear of being left behind, unloved, unseen. You were never taught to decode this system. You were trained to obey it. No one explained that most suffering is not about the present, but about ancient programs firing off in a modern world. That's why peace feels unfamiliar. There's a truth hiding behind the noise. Survival mode is not meant to be permanent. It's an emergency setting, not a life strategy. But unless you see it for what it is, you'll mistake it for who you are. Don't let fear become your identity. You are not your adrenaline. You are not the tension in your jaw. You are not the urge to escape. You are the presence behind all of it, the silent witness waiting to rise. The moment you name the system, you step outside of it. So ask yourself, if fear has been my compass, what would it mean to live without it? After survival, something subtler takes the reins: emotion. It feels more human, more personal. But don't be fooled. This layer is still a cage. Only now, it wears your face, speaks with your voice, and calls itself truth. You react not to the moment, but to memory, a look, a tone, a word, and suddenly, you're 5 years old again, unloved, unseen. Emotional memory floods the system. The body responds before the mind can intervene. This isn't sensitivity, it's programming. You chase love that resembles past wounds. You fear loss even in abundance. You crave approval because your nervous system still believes rejection means death. The emotional brain doesn't negotiate. It scans for threat, real or imagined. The amygdala lights up at shadows. Old stories loop like sacred scripts. Pain becomes personality. Trauma becomes identity. And here's the trap. It feels real. Deeply real. So you defend it. You call it passion, instinct, love. But reaction is not connection. It's a script written by pain, acted out unconsciously, day after day. The emotional self becomes the only self you know. But it's a mask, a beautiful, fragile mask made of unmet needs and unspoken grief. And behind it, something else is waiting. Watching. What if your suffering isn't a flaw, but a signal? What if every emotional storm is pointing to the place where healing wants to enter? Where energetic transmutation is possible? Your emotions are not enemies. They're messengers. But if you confuse the message with your identity, you stay trapped in the loop. Reaction becomes religion. Love becomes war. This isn't who you are. It's who you became to survive. But survival isn't the goal anymore. Awareness is. Integration is. Becoming the one who feels without becoming the feeling. So, next time your heart races or your throat tightens, ask this: is this truth or is this memory in disguise? Then comes a breakthrough, or so it seems. You start to question. You analyze. You name the patterns, the pain. Logic replaces reaction. It feels like awakening. But here lies another illusion. The mind's clever trap. The rational mind builds structures, definitions, categories, systems. It seeks to master life by explaining it. But explanation is not experience, and knowledge is not freedom. You say, I understand now. But understanding isn't the same as release. In fact, the mind can become the new prison, slicker, smarter, and far harder to detect. Now you're not reacting emotionally, you're dissecting everything. Feelings become data, connection becomes theory, mystery becomes something to solve. The heart goes quiet, called irrational. This level creates progress. Yes, civilizations rise here. Science, medicine, discovery. But it also creates separation. I think therefore I am becomes, I think therefore I'm better. The ego hides in intellect. It becomes sharper, cleaner, more respectable. But still hollow. It says, I've figured it out. But no mind has ever thought its way into peace. The rational self wants certainty. But the soul craves depth. And depth cannot be measured, controlled, or decoded. It can only be entered, like water, like silence. Here's the shift. The mind is a tool, not a throne. Its job is to serve awareness, not to replace it. Thought can map the terrain, but only presence can walk the path. So if you find yourself always analyzing, always needing to make sense, ask yourself, what am I trying not to feel? Because the intellect often rises to protect us from what the heart already knows. Truth is not found in arguments. It lives in the quiet space between thoughts. And only those who dare to step beyond knowledge will ever taste true freedom. Something profound happens when the mind begins to loosen its grip. The world softens, judgment fades, and for the first time you don't just think, you feel. But not in the reactive way you once did. This is something entirely different. The heart doesn't analyze, it recognizes. It doesn't ask, "Who are you?" It whispers, "You are me." Empathy replaces strategy, connection replaces control, and every face becomes a mirror. You no longer need someone to agree with you in order to love them. You feel the sacred weight of their story, even if you don't understand it. Compassion becomes the default, not because you're trying, but because you've remembered. Here, vulnerability is no longer weakness, it's the bridge, the invisible current that dissolves armor. What once felt like risk now feels like truth. What once was guarded now becomes a gift. In this space, success starts to shift. It's no longer about winning, it's about weaving. Not achievement, but alignment. Not status, but soul. You don't climb above others, you meet them. The world begins to glow differently. Colors feel alive. Silence speaks louder. You see pain not as a problem to solve, but a signal of where love is needed. Even strangers feel like fragments of home. This is not sentimentality. This is transformation. It's the inner alchemy that melts separation. It's coherence between brain and heart. And when they synchronize, the field responds. Focus plus emotion. Creation. But without the heart, there's only focus. Only force. The heart adds resonance. It's what makes reality not just possible, but meaningful. If you're here, you're already shifting, already sensing the invitation. Don't rush it. Let the heart teach you its language, patience, presence, pulse. So now ask, what would happen if, just for today, I lived as if everyone I met was me in another form? There comes a moment, quiet, breathtaking, when all the lines blur. Me and you, here and there, now and then. They dissolve like smoke. What's left isn't an idea. It's a direct encounter. You don't feel connected to the universe. You feel like the universe. Not metaphorically, experientially. The body is still here, but it's no longer the boundary. The mind still speaks, but it no longer commands. This is the threshold of the quantum field, a place beyond time and space where perception becomes vibration. You don't see with eyes, you perceive with presence. You don't think, you merge. The ego fades, not as an enemy, but as an echo. It becomes irrelevant, like a name in a dream. The observer dissolves into the observed, and what remains is the pulse of everything, moving through you. Science has tried to measure this. Neurofrequency patterns shift. The default mode network goes quiet. But no scan can capture the feeling. A peace so vast it holds galaxies. A silence so full it hums. You realize the truth that was always there. Separation was an illusion. The pain of being apart was only the shadow of forgetting. And now you remember. Every sound is a frequency of you. Every face, a variation of your light. There is no enemy left to fight. No puzzle left to solve. Just this. Presence, reverence, return. You begin to understand that even death is not the end. It's just the folding of form back into field. Everything that ever was, still is. Just vibrating at a frequency you now recognize. Nothing to become, nothing to achieve. Just this breath, this awareness, this eternity wearing your name for a while. So now tell me, if you are everything, who will you choose to be when you return? There is a silence so complete, it erases the need for words. A stillness so pure, even awareness loses shape. This is not bliss. It's not peace. It's not even unity. It's the end of the one who seeks. Non-dual consciousness doesn't feel like something you attain. It feels like something that's been quietly watching all along. The self dissolves, not as a dramatic event, but like the tide pulling back from the shore. You don't say, "I am the light." The sentence collapses before it finishes. There is no I left to claim anything. Observation remains, but without the observer. It's unsettling, liberating, wordless, a state where language fails and identity folds. You're not this body, not this mind, not even this soul. You're what's left when all that falls away. And yet it's not empty. It's full of everything and nothing at once. You're not feeling connected to all things. You are all things, even the space between them. The game of becoming ends. The illusion of progress dissolves. There's nothing to chase. No map, no path, just what is. Eternally present, never arriving, never departing. This isn't detachment. It's radical intimacy. A recognition that everything is you, and yet you are none of it. You've never been separate. You've only dreamed the distance. You don't live here. You vanish here. And somehow in your vanishing, life begins to live more freely through you. The wind doesn't blow past you. It breathes through you. Words like awakening or transcendence seem absurd now, because what is there to awaken from when even sleep was illusion? What is there to transcend when no boundary was ever real? If you are not the thinker, not the feeler, not even the witness, then what remains when all that is gone? It would be comforting to believe that growth is a straight line, that once you reach light, you never taste shadow again. But that's not how this works. Consciousness moves in spirals, always has. You rise, and then you return. Not as failure, but as integration. The highs are real. The lows are invitations. The space between is where your soul learns to dance. Even after a glimpse of eternity, you might find yourself caught in traffic, in doubt, in pain. That's not regression. That's the path welcoming you deeper. Each return to fear is a test. Can you bring the light with you? Can you walk back into the storm with open eyes and a steady heart? The spiral teaches humility. You're not here to escape the human. You're here to illuminate it, over and over, with gentleness, with presence, with awe. You don't fail when you fall. You fail when you forget what you found in the light. When you wear past awakenings like armor instead of letting them soften you. The ego reforms in strange ways. It dresses up as the awakened one. It uses memories of unity to avoid feeling real pain. This is bypassing, a loop in disguise, but the spiral burns away illusion. Each turn takes you deeper, closer, more honest, until there's nothing left to defend and everything left to feel. Integration is the real work, not staying above, but returning below, carrying gold. That's the alchemy. That's what transforms moments into medicine. So ask yourself, when you fall again, and you will, what part of your light will you choose to bring back? Every seeker longs for the summit. The final answer. The place where everything clicks and suffering dissolves. But what if that place doesn't exist? What if the idea of arrival is the final illusion? The last story the ego tells before it lets go. You were never climbing toward an ending. You were spiraling deeper into being. There's no mountaintop waiting to reward you, no enlightenment that erases your humanity. The truth isn't at the end. It's woven into every messy, luminous step. The more you awaken, the more you realize how little there is to hold. Identities fall, beliefs soften. Even your most sacred insights eventually become sand. You start to see growth not as achievement, but as surrender. Not as rising above, but as diving within. Letting go of the idea that you need to be done, to be whole. The peak was never real, just a mirage to keep you moving. And now that you see through it, You finally arrive, everywhere, because presence is not a destination. It's a way of being, of touching life without demanding it change, of walking with open hands, not clenched fists. You stop asking, when will I get there? And start wondering, what is this moment asking of me? You no longer chase light. You become it. And as everything collapses, the goals, the identities, the maps, you find the freedom that was always waiting. Not in perfection, but in the pulse of now. So if there is no finish line, who are you when there's nowhere left to go? No grand finale, no fireworks, just a quiet breath echoing through your chest. This is where the journey always leads. Back to the beginning, back to the part of you that was never lost. You've seen the spiral, you've touched the mystery. Now the question isn't what more you can become, but how honestly you can return. Can you live this day like it's sacred? Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Because it holds the reflection of everything you've remembered. The mind will want to climb again. It'll whisper of progress, of goals, of more. Let it speak, but let your presence be louder. Let your stillness answer first. This isn't resignation. It's reverence. A devotion to what's here. A love that needs no reason. A truth that no longer needs to be proven. You don't need to perform your awakening. You don't need to explain it. You just need to embody it. In how you breathe, in how you listen, in how you touch the moment. The real work is quiet. It doesn't post. It doesn't shout. It meets the world with soft eyes and an undefended heart. If you've come this far, you feel it. The silence inside you isn't empty. It's alive. It's the field calling you home. Let the return be slow. Let it be tender. Let it feel like remembering an old language your soul never forgot. And now, with nothing left to chase, are you finally ready to just be? The journey you just walked wasn't about theories. It was a mirror to show you where your soul has been, and where it's ready to go next. You now know how each layer of consciousness carries a lesson, a trap, and a door. And the key has always been presence. The spiral of awareness doesn't promise a destination. It offers you mastery if you dare to return deeper each time. So take a breath and let that truth sink into your bones. If this resonated, subscribe and hit like. It lets the message keep reaching the ones who are ready. Drop this in the comments so I know you felt it. I am not ascending. I am remembering. And send this video to someone who's been mistaking exhaustion for awakening. They need to hear this. Now that you've remembered the architecture of your awareness, it's time to unlock the alchemy within. Watch the next video to discover how vibration transmutes your reality.